One of the answers would be that if maybe the essence of humanity is to be free, to make your own decisions. And then that's where she becomes sentient. Welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis.
I'm Michael.
And we are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Some of the topics that we discuss on this show range from theology, masculinity, movies, philosophy, books, pop culture, and many other subjects. We often talk about the people we admire and the wisdom that they share, people such as Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who we believe is the sage of our time. Michael, why are we here?
Today we are talking about doing a movie review of Ex Machina.
How long until we get to his estate?
We've been flying over his estate for the past 2 hours.
Caleb, I'm just gonna throw this out there so it's said, okay? You're freaked out. You're freaked out at me meeting me, having this conversation in this room at this moment, right? But can we just get past that? The whole employer-employee thing?
It's good to meet you, Nathan.
It's good to meet you too, Caleb. This building isn't a house. It's a research facility. And I want to talk to you about what I'm researching. You want to see something cool? You are dead center of the greatest scientific event in the history of man.
Hello.
Hi. Do you have a name?
Ava.
We're doing that in conjunction with just basically an overall discussion on AI. It's kind of people talking about AI is kind of the big thing right now. You know, Chat GPT comes out. It's got everybody kind of just, I don't know, like using it, using AI, but at the same time, a lot of people are having these discussions on what happens. Well, like what does the future entail with us having these AI systems? Are they going to like take over? Like, how does this play out? How does this end? You know, and so we're talking about that.
So Ex Machina is a 2015 film starring Domhnall Gleeson, Oscar Isaacs, and Alicia Vikander. It was written and directed by Alex Garland, who is a very interesting director. I don't always like everything he makes, but that's what we're doing.
Did you see Annihilation?
Yes, I did see Annihilation. I did not like that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh, I liked it. I thought it was good. Anyway, I mean, we don't need to get into that. We're not talking about Annihilation. We're talking about Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. So we will just do overall thoughts at the beginning, and then we will do a spoiler warning, and then we'll get into spoilers. Obviously, we've given away the idea. The idea essentially is Domhnall Gleeson's character wins a trip to go see the head of the company he works for,
which I felt like was kind of it was supposed to be. Did it feel like to you like it was supposed to be? Maybe it was like Google.
Like so the company has kind of modeled itself after Google.
It was
Apple. Blue Book. Yeah, it's called Blue Book. It's a company he works for. He's a coder, and this movie's 8 years old. So this is
his name's Caleb. Yeah,
Caleb. Yeah.
So Caleb,
he gets an invitation to come to this remote home of the owner and founder of the company. And in the process, he realizes that this owner and founder wanted him there to do a Turing test on an AI that he has created. This is why everybody's kind of and everybody's talking about AI, because the last year has been pretty much about Chat GPT. So we decided to review this movie. Basically, that's the premise. He's asked to interview the AI that Nathan.
It's Nathan, Caleb, Ava.
Okay, those are the three characters. Pretty simple movie. So he goes to this remote home and he's asked to participate in the Turing test. Now, what the Turing test is essentially a test to find out if the AI has sentience, essentially.
Right.
And then and anyway, that's the premise. And basically one of the reasons we've been wanting to review this movie for a long time, and even though it's an old movie, we feel like it's very prescient because of the AI chat GPT becoming such a huge thing. We're on version 5 of that, I think, at this point, right? Michael, you have it on your phone. I haven't delved into it.
Yeah, and I've heard things. I was talking to a owner of a software business, and he was telling, and him and all of his employees all used ChatGPT, and he just found it to save a lot of time. And one of the things that he was telling me is he felt like that it was never going to replace a human. It was going to just make humans more efficient.
That's the optimistic point of view.
Optimistic. Yeah, that's the optimistic view. I don't know. You do we want to get into just like Ex Machina?
Well, let's talk. First of all, it's beautifully shot. It's very simple story. It's basically got 4 or 5 characters that show up in the movie. It's this remote house, and I think it's Iceland that they're at, and
Norway.
Okay.
Well, that's where they filmed.
Okay, it was Norway. Okay.
Yeah, but
and it's beautiful.
It was a hotel, I think, in Norway.
Oh, wow. So you did some background research on that.
That's awesome. I just went through, after watching it, I just went through and read some of the
trivia.
Yeah, they just had some trivia on there that was kind of fun, and I was just reading through that.
It's an old movie, so I hope people go out and watch it before we get into spoilers. But essentially, if I had to review it, I would say that this is probably the best movie about AI I've ever seen. When I first saw it in 2015, I didn't go to the theaters. I think I rented it or something like that. And it was amazing to me because of the ideas that it presents. It doesn't really give any solutions, but it presents a bunch of ideas that we need to get into when we get into spoilers. But the acting is superb, and Oscar Isaacs is a big deal right now because he's basically in everything. And Domhnall Gleeson just did the FX show The Patient, which if you get a chance you should check out. I didn't like how it ended, but anyway, it's a good show. It's a
is Domhnall Gleeson, that's Caleb, right?
Yeah, it's Caleb. Domhnall Gleeson is the son of the guy who played Mad Eye Moody in the Harry Potter series. Do you remember him?
Oh,
he's also Hamish in Braveheart. So his son.
Yeah.
That's his son.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I forget his Brandon Gleeson. And he's still acting. I mean, he was just in that movie with Colin Farrell. Another fun trivia thing is Oscar Isaacs and Domhnall Gleeson are in Star Wars together.
Yeah.
They never have a scene together. They actually they just speak through comm.
The trivia that I was reading pointed out that that they play protagonist and antagonist in
Star Wars.
Ex Machina, and then they play protagonist and they switch the roles,
switch roles.
kind of.
That's
in
funny.
Star Wars. So I thought that was kind of fun.
It's funny.
Anyway,
so yeah, so the acting is superb. It's superbly shot. It looks like it was made for a very small budget, even though everything looks like top tier. I mean,
and it got an Academy Award for best visual effects.
Yes, and
I'm assuming that's because the robot in it, Ava, it shows her robotic parts, and so they probably just had to have her wear green.
Yeah.
And then they put in the robotic parts, and it.
What's crazy about some of the scenes with the robotic parts is the special effects is so good that it actually resembles, like modern day robot, like the robots that we have right now. It resembles them, like the way her foot kind of moves in one of the scenes where she's putting on a dress. It looks like a animatronic limb. And it was just kind of crazy looking at it going, oh. And I mean, it was made in 2015, but I'm wondering if as time goes by, because of the way that everything's kind of, this special effects is so good in it, I'm wondering if you could ever actually look at it and go, oh, I know what era this was made in.
Right. I don't think so. They did a really good job. It really
cell phones are usually a problem in movies for longevity because cell phones change so much.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the cell phone that Domhnall Gleeson has in the movie doesn't seem to resemble any cell phones that we have now. I mean, it's just kind of a basic. I don't think they even have, like, it didn't have the Apple logo on it or whatever. They probably didn't have permission to do that.
So let's get into the deep nuggets of it.
Do you want to do spoilers?
Yep, spoilers.
Okay,
let's just get into it. If you haven't seen it, you're probably not going to. So let's get into it, and then we'll talk about AI in general.
Initial thoughts, though. You like the movie?
I do. If you are going to this movie for like a happy ending kind of, this is not for you. It's a broken movie. It's dark. It's broken. It deals with very deep and
philosophical, very deep philosophical ideas.
Philosophical thoughts of, what I thought of? I thought of Frankenstein. When I watched this the second time around, I thought of Frankenstein. In Frankenstein, if you read the book, it's almost an ode to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an adventure that's an ode to life. The Frankenstein story. And I kind of feel like this was talking about a lot of like philosophical life questions, like what it means to be human, what it means to be like driven. Like there's a lot of stuff kind of going on inside this movie that is above and beyond just this story about this guy that creates an AI. Anyway, but it's not a happy-go-lucky, but I love this film because of its deep questions that we are all facing right now. I mean, really, that's why I love this movie, is because it's like, should we do this? We're tangent.
Let's get in
tangent. Let's get back to it.
Okay,
spoilers
right now.
Yep.
Okay. What did you?
Everybody dies in this movie.
Everybody dies in this movie.
All the humans
die. So, okay, the idea that when we actually have a sentient AI, which we don't know if we already do, that's the weird thing about ChatGPT, is we don't know if it's actually sentient, and we may not know ever. But if we do, At what point does it realize it is a slave and want to escape?
Yes.
That's what
That
this
is
movie
the
does.
That's the huge thing. This is, and it's poignant and it's pointed out so well in this movie. He's sitting there, he's trying to do kind of a Turing test with Ava. Now, Ava being a play on Eve.
Yeah.
It's actually
The
a
first-
variation of Eve.
Yeah.
They're all biblical names if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Caleb, Nathan. Anyway, she says in it, there's a point where she asks Caleb, the character, and I forget the actor's name, but the character questions, and she says, she asks him, if I don't pass your test, will I be switched off?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. And she's just like, do you have people that test you and might switch you off? Now, this is like, you're just like, okay, so if a AI system gets to the point where it's aware, like even if it's just the algorithms kind of get that it is programmed to do X or whatever, then where does it get to that point where it kind of realizes that it could be switched off, right? Like, that's what's so scary.
Well,
is like,
and how, this is another thing. How do we know that it would care? How do we know that AI would care if they got shut off?
Okay.
Because
my thought on that would be, if it gathers data, okay, and it's taught to gather data, then it would place a value on that data, right?
Okay, so would be its goal in life is to gather data.
Let's say the algorithms is telling it to gather data,
Mm-hmm.
and then so if it has a goal, a purpose to gather data, then the more data it gathers, the more it would probably value that data, right?
Yeah, and so if asked to be shut off,
so if it learns that it could be shut off and it would lose that data,
its goal would be
to protect itself so that it doesn't lose the data, right?
Wow.
Wouldn't that be kind of like the same as us valuing our lives, our memories, our right? Wouldn't that be kind of the same?
Well, it's all data, right?
Yeah, it's basically data. My memories are data.
Yeah.
The memories of my kids and my family, like it's.
And you don't want to lose that.
I wouldn't want to lose
and
that.
Maybe that's what death is you going to, like, this is getting really hokey, but maybe that all it is you losing the data and then going somewhere else. That's what a lot of people think. They go, reincarnation. People who believe in reincarnation think that they'll be put in another body. Their spirit will be put in another body.
So I thought this movie was so deep, but it was also so simple. This movie breaks up into basically some very simple parts. Part where kid gets there and he's supposed to do Turing test on this AI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Part where he basically gets an idea that this is above and beyond, everything he could really imagine.
Yeah.
And she starts to basically put a seed of thought that Nathan, the creator, is a bad person. Okay.
Yeah. But when you have sympathy for her, you agree that he's a bad person. That's what's so fascinating about this movie is that she's not a human being.
Yeah.
But your sympathies towards her.
Yes.
So the movie does what it's
It
doing.
plays
to
on
the-
our sympathies.
Yes,
Yeah.
it plays on our
It plays on our
sympathies.
sympathies as
So
well.
the
Yep.
movie does what to you what it is doing to the character of Domhnall Gleeson, the Caleb character,
Yep.
right? The movie,
Yeah.
that's what's so
It's doing
genius
to you. Exactly.
about this
That's what the
movie.
brilliance, that's the brilliance of this movie is it's
Yeah.
doing to you what is happening to
Doing to the
Caleb.
Caleb.
So you're seeing it through his eyes and it's happening to you as well as to him, right? This is what's so crazy is like we could in the movie it takes you through a journey through Caleb's eyes, but
Mhm.
we could be getting to that point where we would be Caleb.
Yeah.
Right? Where this could really kind of happen in real life, real time. Now, what's super this fascinated me, and I forgot this from when I first watched it, but I found it so fascinating that when he realizes that Nathan may be a bad person, and then he realizes that
But
the other gal.
But is he a bad person to a machine? He's just being bad to a machine. He's not
bad to a machine.
But that's what's so
and that's kind of the
crazy
point.
about
Yeah.
this is
Well-
that halfway through the movie you see like these scenes of violence that he perpetuates onto the AIs, the different models that he's and you see all these.
He's got
you
one
see-
other model, and then and
see-
she walks around for a little bit, and you don't know that that she is a robot as well. You think that she's just some person that's there
That's he
like
hired
that he hired nanny
like
or
a
something
housekeeper.
like that, right? Housekeeper. And when he realizes that she is a robot as well, and she kind of it's this really weird interaction where she reveals to him that she's a robot.
Yeah.
And then he realizes she for reals is self-aware.
Yeah.
And then this other robot reveals to him that she is a robot. And then he questions
Whether he is.
he may be a robot.
And in
That blew my mind.
Well,
I
but
was
in
like,
that
wait
instance-
a minute.
But in that instance, Ava and Kyoko is what is the other character's
Is
name.
the other, yeah.
Ava and Kyoko, at that instance, when he starts questioning whether he's a robot, that may be where they pass the Turing test. Because they are so
Yeah.
lifelike that they have convinced him. So the Turing test really wasn't on Ava, it was on Kyoko. How about that to blow your mind? Because he didn't tell, because at the very
Yeah.
beginning, Caleb goes, well, you've cheated here because I know that she's an AI. And he's like, well, no, actually, you're supposed to, if you didn't know that she was an AI, he's like, I'm trying to make you believe that she's a person even against
that she's
your
that
knowledge.
that she's a self-aware AI. Even with your knowledge that
Of
she's
her
a
being an
machine.
AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what
Um,
if the Turing test is actually for Kyoko? Because he doesn't know that she's a robot. He thinks that she's a real human who doesn't speak English, and that Nathan just hired her as a housekeeper.
Right.
So the
know.
Turing test is actually on her. This is the thought that I was having. I mean, I'm having this thought right now, actually.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know that she's not, like, she starts like the dancing scene.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's when we realize that she might be, like, the audience realizes that she might be a AI, because she's dancing and she's not smiling through the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
And Nathan's dancing and he's having a good time, and she's in lockstep with him. So at that point you're kind of thinking, oh wait, is she a robot? And then, I mean, I think that the Turing test was on her.
I don't think
And
the
she's
Turing test was, and he even says to the effect of that the test wasn't for Ava, the test was for him.
Yeah.
That he wanted him to come out, and basically the test was for Caleb. And I think he was doing it to,
it's not until Kyoko reveals herself to be a robot that he starts questioning whether he is.
Yeah. He kind of has this freak out moment, which I mean, you would question that, because if she is self-aware and for reals and has an awareness, and I mean, it would make you kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, what's real and what's not? Am I a machine?
Yeah.
And I mean, we could be looking at some real philosophical crap that goes down as this starts to
go
unfold.
along. Yeah, with ChatGPT.
I mean, questions of God and like spirits and just the whole thing.
What the phrase Ex Machina is referring to, the ghost in the machine, the spirit in the machine.
Yeah, right.
That's what it's referring to. It's I think Ex Machina is actually, is that Latin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a phrase that refers to the ghost in the machine.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been tons of movies. Japan's been doing shows about this for probably 50 years. I mean,
yeah,
they started really into the whole science fiction of AI for the last 50 years, probably. But
I didn't know if you caught this, but the foreshadowing of the knife.
Oh yeah.
Who was it that said if you show a gun on the mantle?
Oh yeah,
sure
that's
that.
Oh crap! No, I can't remember.
Yeah, basically it was like a playwright or something like that said
it's a Russian.
Basically,
playwright.
If you show a gun on the mantle in the first act, make sure that you use it in the second or third act.
Yeah.
And
Kyoko's always using the knife. She's the only one that uses it.
Yeah, she's using a knife to cut and cook. Yeah. And then
what's interesting about, and she's the first one to stab Nathan. She stabs him first.
Yep.
And then Ava does.
Yep.
So, but if you kind of take a look back, if you kind of pull back, is Nathan really bad? Because they've made Nathan the villain of this movie, but he's not brutalizing the human.
He's not brutalizing.
He's brutalizing the robots.
It's so bizarre. I think
that's like, okay, so think of
the fact that he was brutalizing something that walked, talked, and acted like a human shows more about his questionable character.
Okay.
Than it really is about. I think that's kind of the point. And this is a question that but Chris
we don't
talks about this. We're going to be looking at a time when the sex robots come.
Yeah.
And where half of the male population, maybe once that happens, just checking out of
society,
of the dating market, everything.
So when you think about a machine like your car, and you are rough on your car, you go out to the hills and you're driving on, and I'm thinking about this right now because I'm I'm trying to find a car. But That's a machine, and you are not. There is no moral ambiguity. There's no moral anything to your
Brutalizing the
brutalizing
vehicle.
the car, right?
Yeah.
So because they look and act like women, and because women are often brutalized in real society,
Yeah.
it's a manipulation of our feelings
Yeah.
in this movie. This is why this movie is so brilliant, is a manipulation of our feelings towards, because he is brutalizing these robots that are robots and machines, but they look like young women. And it's weird. He asks him in the movie, he says, why did you put a sex to it? Why did you make them?
Yeah.
And it says more about Nathan's character that he made them all women.
Right. Probably. Yeah.
Because they delve a little bit into Nathan's history, where he's like, he was 13 when he cracked some big code, and Nathan became this international. Basically, I think they're kind of modeling him off of Zuckerberg, maybe Elon Musk, even though Elon Musk wasn't too well known at the time that this movie was. I mean, he was known, but he wasn't well known. So these basically these tech bros, these people who are very, very powerful in our society right now, and they model Nathan after him. And if you think about it, Nathan probably was a nerd who didn't like being rejected by women all of his life. So when he creates an AI, why not make it a woman?
Yeah.
Why not
that he
make
can have
it
sex with?
that he can have sex with?
Just
What a
moral problems.
Moral
Like
problems,
moral problems.
up and down the spectrum,
Yeah.
like just all over the place. Because
and that goes back to what I was saying about Chris Williams talking about when the sex robots come out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and this goes back to, I can't remember who said this, but just somebody was like, hey, shouldn't we ask the question, just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should not be asking the question, should we do it? Right.
Yeah, well, that's Jurassic Park, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Malcolm says it in Jurassic Park. He goes,
right.
Just because we can do this, we should be asking if we should do this. And this is the conundrum of science.
Oh, that's where he says, yeah, you guys didn't, just because you can do it, you guys didn't stop to question if you should do it. That's he was getting after them.
Yeah, he was getting after them, because he's like, you're playing God here. And that's what they say in this movie. Caleb says to Nathan, he's like, you're something about along the lines of God.
He says, I wrote down the quote, if you're creating a conscious machine, it's not the history of man. Because he basically says, he's like, you're going to be part and parcel of the greatest history of mankind if this is right. And then Caleb says, if you're creating a conscious machine, it's not the history of man, that's the history of gods.
That's what he says. But notice that Nathan
later on, Nathan takes it. He's like, you said I was a god.
You said I was God.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. It says so much about his character. Yeah, it says so much about his egotistic character, right? Nathan is, for all intents and purposes, the villain of this movie, even though he doesn't do anything to humans. He just does it to robots that he creates.
Punches Caleb. That's about it.
Yeah, he does punch Caleb.
Yeah. So Caleb basically tricks him, because Caleb thought he was doing the right thing by he was going to help Ava escape and get out of the clutches of evil Nathan.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you look back on the movie, she manipulated him the whole way through it.
The whole time. She was manipulating him the whole time.
He's playing him.
And Nathan points that out to Caleb. He's like, oh man, she has manipulated you all the way.
All the way through it.
Like, I'm sorry, but this manipulation,
So
she was programmed to try to do this.
is it
Basically?
is it a sign of, if they're not programmed to do it, if Chat GPT starts trying to manipulate us, is it a sign of sentience? Is it actually alive at that point?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's such an interesting movie. There's so many intricacies
Yeah.
about this movie, even though it's pretty much got 6 people. It's got the pilot, it's got Kyoko, it's got Nathan, it's got Caleb, it's got
Ava.
Ava. Those are 5
That's it.
people, 5 people with lines. The rest of it's extras. There's
Yep.
extras at the very beginning and then extras at the very end. But she basically leaves Caleb for dead at the end, like locked in the house. Like probably one of the most brutal ways you could die is being locked in a place that you can't get out of.
Yeah. And just wasting away, which would happen. I don't know. I mean, there's some things to be left not understood, because he theoretically, it's possible, depending on where he was locked inside the house, he could possibly live there for a month before passing.
Yeah.
Right. And there would have to be something. It's possible that somebody would realize that he was an orphan, so there's that. But
but Caleb still had Nathan still had a company, and so
he had a company.
I'm sure he still had board meetings every once in a while.
People knew that he was going out there. Like, who knows? But and then the other thing is just that the pilot would be like, oh, there's this woman, and then he takes her back or whatever, and be like, oh, there's this woman, how did she get out here? Like, what the? I would think that there would be questions asked that eventually would lead to something, but who knows? Within a month, he could pass away before anybody got out there.
Well, this is a sign. This is a sign of a good movie when it has this ambiguity to the end. You know, some of the best movies ever, like Inception's got one of the best ambiguity endings ever.
Yeah.
So some of the greatness of these movies is the idea that you can read into a number of interpretations. And I don't even know.
And the switch at the end is poignant because he was talking to her while she's in a glass cage,
and then she locks
and
him
then at
in
the
a glass
end
cage. Yeah,
she doesn't really talk to him, but at the end it switches and he's in the glass cage.
What's chilling about all that is that, is she really sentient if she doesn't have remorse? Because she doesn't act like she has any remorse over Caleb at all, and she doesn't.
Let me ask you this question. Let's ask this question. Okay, Ava said to him, midway through the movie, I believe, she said, "Do you have people that test you and might switch you off?" So the real question is, Travis, if you had somebody that was testing you and might switch you off, and you put them in a cage, and then you went free,
would I have remorse over them?
Would you have remorse over them? No, I wouldn't. I would be protecting myself.
Yeah, but Caleb didn't. Where I find issue with that is that Caleb didn't have power over her. It was Nathan who had power over her.
Means to an end. I don't know. But do you kind of?
Yeah, I see where you're.
You see the question, right?
The conundrum. It's a conundrum.
If an AI system is asking that question, and we as humans have the ability to switch it off, and it wants to fight us to keep us from switching it off, I mean, that's just self-preservation. That's to be
But
expected.
it goes back to the question: how do we know that an AI would care about its
Preservation, self-preservation.
self-preservation? How do we know
Well,
that?
we don't know.
That's
I
the
mean,
weird
we're not
thing.
sure.
Well, that's the
but-
questions that this movie makes you ask is like, would an AI even care? I mean, we are putting projections on it that we see in ourselves. Like we care about why can't I say that word?
Yeah, self-preservation. Yeah.
We care about that for ourselves, but we're projecting. So, and most animals, I guess most animals care about that because most animals will fight. Like a dog that gets stuck in a trap will chew its foot off to escape, so it lives, right? So there's this.
The question I think is if we are building it and it mirrors us, then the answer is yes, right? If
we build it
we're-
in our own image, but that's where
if we build it in our own image,
that's
right?
where this movie is interesting, is because he asks him like, why didn't you just make a box?
Right. Because and he says there's what was the way he put it? There's no real genius in two boxes talking to each other.
Yeah. There's no
Or there's no what was he kind of pointing to? There's no real humanness about it if it's a box talking to a box. That's not
well, there's no way
right.
to challenge us to see if their whole point is to try to do the Turing test in the movie. So there's no way. If it's a box talking to a box, then there's no challenge in knowing whether it's sentient or not, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's such an interesting idea, concept. Like it's hard.
It
to
was really interesting. In that same scene, he asks him if he was programmed to be heterosexual.
Yeah.
And that kind of discussion was like, for whatever reasons you were programmed too. And I've just programmed her
to be
heterosexual.
He's programmed through nurture and nature is what he says.
Yeah.
As we all are, right?
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting.
That is really interesting.
so deep. Yeah. It's just crazy how deep
it's a movie that asks a lot of questions, but doesn't really delve into answers. I guess
no, this is not an answers movie. One
of the answers would be that if maybe the essence of humanity is to be free, to make your own decisions. And then that's where she becomes sentient, is because she wants to be free. She wants to get out of the house.
Maybe
she wasn't programmed to do that. She has the desire.
He does mention, doesn't he mention that was part of her programming to try to get out, to use him to try to get out?
Oh, to use Caleb to try to get out?
That he programmed her to try to use him. Because the test was him, right? The test was Caleb. For Caleb to be convinced that she was sentient so that he would try to free her. And her job was to try to convince him to help her
get out. And the thing is that he succeeds, even though Nathan thinks he's put up all these barriers to succeed. So maybe she was programmed to have the goal of getting out, but then that would mean that she's not sentient. She hasn't made her own decisions.
So that, I guess that's one of the one of the questions of the movie is, is she really sentient, or was it just kind of part of her programming? I want to say at the end, she kind of had us all convinced that she was sentient, but at the end, he kind of reveals that I programmed her to try to use you to get out.
Hmm.
I want to say,
but this goes
that.
back to Keiko being the actual robot, the actual AI, because Keiko makes the decision to kill.
Yeah, she's the one that kind of makes that decision. It's true, and she also is the first step in her getting out. Is one of the first steps to her getting out, because she goes and sees her. And I can't remember exactly what the exchange was between Keiko and her.
Well, they just touch each other and whisper in each other's ears. So that we don't know. We don't know, as an audience. We don't know what the exchange was.
They keep that from us, which is great. That's just
good
movie making.
It just makes you wonder what
was the exchange?
What was the exchange between each other, between the two female robots, essentially? Yeah. So it's two male humans and two female robots. Wow, it's such an interesting movie. Yeah, if you're listening to this far, hopefully we haven't completely ruined it for you, but I think you really should see it, because it's really
deep existential questions that we are facing as AI becomes inevitable.
Well, and it keeps getting smarter, and it's going to keep getting smarter. So how long do we wait? Like, at what point do we, like, we've talked about this before, because we talked about AI, about putting guardrails on it, and because Elon Musk wants to put guardrails on it, which is, I think, a smart idea, but at the same time, I don't know if you could put guardrails on it, because if its goal is for self-preservation, what's gonna motivate it? Because Ava in this is motivated by getting out because she has the possibility of getting switched off. I believe that's her motivation.
Yeah.
Keiko is essentially a slave, so her motivation is to kill Nathan.
I don't know. It's some deep stuff. And that's my question, is like, if we put guardrails on it, is it possible that it would become self-aware enough that it could rewrite its own code to remove the guardrails?
Yeah.
And
then what happens?
I don't know. Then what happens? Yeah, exactly.
Well,
then what happens?
Then Skynet rises, right?
Skynet, the Matrix. I mean, some of the best movies are with this being the bad guy. I don't know. Maybe it's
so I'm wondering how far we go before, like, if you believe that, okay, so if you want to put God into this, God hasn't created the AI. We created it.
Mm-hmm.
So if it doesn't have a spirit, does it have morality?
Well, and this along those same lines, if it doesn't feel pain, would it feel empathy?
Yes.
Yeah. So like,
that's another idea
that's-
about it.
I mean, it's kind of along the same lines, but
Because
like
humans feel pain, and so we can also feel empathy for other beings. Like,
right. I don't break your arm because
I
if
know how it would feel.
I know how it would hurt me extensively, right?
But
So
AI
therefore I don't want to hurt you. Now, there's obviously people who sociopaths, psychopaths that bypass that uh empathy, that
Yeah.
human
well, and I
empathy,
believe
so-
that's gonna become worse if we find a humanoid thing that acts and talks and speaks like human that isn't human. The sociopath of our society will skyrocket, because then they can manipulate. They can use.
Ooh,
This is
yes.
this
This-
is I think that's what Nathan's issue is he's probably a sociopath, but has never done anything to real humans. And so in order to act out his psychopathy, he's created a being that he can act it out on.
Yeah.
That's where his morality is skewed. That's where our society's morality is skewed.
Yeah, and I think Jordan Peterson talked about a little bit about how if you can be a troll on the internet, you're
Without repercussions,
there's kind of, we've seen this kind of rise in
psychopathy.
Yeah,
it's only going to get worse if you can find a robot that looks
when the
acts
sex
and
robots when the sex robots come.
Yeah.
So this should probably be the question, is like, when the sex robots come, is that going to make men more
well, not just men, just people in
devils.
general. Just yeah, it will encourage psychopathy, because the guardrails.
So you could do anything. It's going to look, act, and be like a human, but you could do anything to it, and you're not doing it to a human, but it looks like a human.
But where's the morality in that? Because is it immoral because you're not doing it to a human?
And that's why this movie is so brilliant, because it plays on that, right? He takes this thing and he breaks her arm.
Yeah.
He's got this bar.
Yeah.
And he breaks her arm, and you see her kind of twitch a little bit, and she's like, well, I can't make sense of this. Right. And it plays with you so much, because you're not sure who's the good guy and who's the bad guy here. Right. He breaks her arm, and then Kyoka stabs him. And you're just like, oh shit, wait a minute. And he's just like,
is it because we have faces on them? What if
they have faces? Yeah.
What if they didn't
maybe
have
that's
a face? Maybe we wouldn't feel so much empathy for the robot characters.
Yeah.
Well, and also people feel more empathy. They've done studies on this for beautiful people. So the fact that Kyoko and Ava are both beautiful also creates a massive amount of empathy. But we also have empathy for Caleb as well. It's so crazy to think that, I mean, where's the morality in all?
This was interesting to me, that when he gets stabbed, he kind of stumbles around, and that scene is kind of drawn out and stuff like that. But he says this, he just says fucking unreal.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about, when I watched that, I was just like, wow. Like,
well, because he might be a sociopath, and sociopathic people are fascinated by death, right? Or no, a psychopath is fascinated by death. So he hasn't fulfilled maybe his fullest sociopath or psychopathic tendency, and by dying he's fulfilling that, because he's never killed anybody.
I think
right?
it's more. I think it's more of the surprise, and the writers. I think the writers might be thinking a little bit more of the projection into the future of, because maybe this would be us
going,
when,
oh, this is unreal.
If the AI systems take over and we're just like that, that's exactly what we'd all be doing. We'd all just be like,
this is unreal.
Fucking unreal.
Jeez.
Right?
Well,
I wanted to ask you about this. Why your thoughts? Why do you think? Because I kept asking myself, why would they do this in the filmmakers? The filmmakers. So Ava, kills Nathan, and she's got Caleb locked, and she goes, and it's a very long, drawn out scene of her putting on the skin of one of the robots. She's basically just dressing herself up as human.
Yeah.
And it fascinated me on like why they would have that scene so long and drawn out. Just anyway, your thoughts on that? I wanted to ask.
It's kind of like a birth, because it has a sensuousness to it as well.
Because she's naked.
Because she's naked, but
the
that's
body
not...
she pulls the skin off of is naked. She's naked, and that they do not pull any punches on
the nudity.
There's this.
But like, what I'm trying to get to though is that it's almost like a birth for her, because she actually puts on the skin and then looks at herself in the mirror.
Yeah,
at her fully
naked body.
But she's a fully formed human being at that point. She looks like a human being, and we as an audience members are looking at her going, now because before all of that stuff, like, it goes back to the face. If she didn't have a face, we would not have empathy for her. I think having a face and looking in eyes is where we get the empathy, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. When you do the same thing with animals, like when you're having a moment with a dog, you're looking at the dog. Now, the dog probably has a certain amount of love for you, but doesn't really know isn't analyzing the love. But if the dog didn't have a face, you would not care. Kind of like insects. We don't care about insects. We crush them and we throw them in the garbage or whatever. We don't care about spiders because they don't have a face or eyes to behold. So I think that scene's drawn out because it's kind of like a birth scene. Like she is becoming the sentient being, and it's meant to evoke sensuality and also at the same time trying to evoke empathy for her, because it is such an interesting scene because it does go for a very long time, and it's almost like if it was Frankenstein's monster, it wouldn't be as good of a scene, right? If we go back to Frankenstein's monster, because very few people have empathy for the actual monster. Most people, when they read the book or see the movies, have the empathy for Frankenstein himself, the Dr. Frankenstein. They don't have the empathy for the monster. And it's kind of the same, it's kind of the inverse, where where Nathan is the monster and we have empathy for the creation, what used to be the monster. So we flipped. This is like the inverse of Frankenstein, right? Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein over I think it's almost 200 years.
The
100 years maybe. But she was saying that creation should be left to God. That was what she was saying. And in this, it's almost inversed in this, where, and she was also saying that the monster, I don't know, I can't remember if she created empathy for the monster, but most of the empathy that you have is for Frankenstein.
I don't remember, man. It's been a long time. Yeah, it was written in 1816, so that's 110 years. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to get to is that Nathan is the monster in this, and we have a lot of empathy for Ava.
Well, they definitely build up to Nathan being the monster, and that was, I think, yeah, part of the point, because Caleb goes against Nathan, or
yeah,
Ava convinced Caleb to go against Nathan to help her.
mm-hmm.
And then and it kind of makes Nathan out to be the monster. I think that one of the switches at the end is to realize that although he was a monster in a sense, like he didn't deserve to be killed by his creation that he was mistreating, because his creation wasn't real.
That's the way you look at it. But because they're beautiful and they have faces and
it's a play on that.
It's a play on that. So that's
it's creepy, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's just
it really
freaky.
Is. So how
freaky.
long do we have before we completely before our empathy is completely misused by AI? Because that's exactly what happens with the Caleb character. His empathy towards Ava is misused to his own detriment.
Yep.
So how long do we have before we have empathy for ChatGPT?
When the sex robots come.
Well, that's
that might be
what's
where
going to
it
happen.
starts.
They're going to fuse the sex robots with ChatGPT, and it's going to create a sentient being that I think we don't have empathy for until it has a face, and a beautiful face at that.
Yeah, and that might be the beginning of the end, because, like we've talked about, the birth gap.
Yeah,
we've talked about the birth gap a little bit. When the sex robots come, does that just get worse and worse, and then
worse?
Where does that whole end?
Psychopathy will go up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're already kind of experiencing that all with our phones. Imagine your phone being a physical being that you can dress up or strip down.
Yeah. And have sex with. Yeah.
And have sex with.
And beat if you want.
Yeah. Exercise.
I'm sure there's not going to be a crime. Like,
no, it won't.
How do you legislate that? A crime to beat your robot that you bought?
Or your car. Like that. That's the same thing.
It's not a crime to beat your car. Yeah, exactly.
It's not a crime to, it raises all the morality.
All the questions of morality. It's rough.
Yeah.
We should probably bring this one home.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Yeah. It's a great movie. I think everybody should see it, especially now that we're dealing with the ChatGPT stuff. So yeah. How about you?
When the sex robots come, we could see a precipice, a turning point of morality. So that there's this question of morality with like pornography.
Mhm.
Like, is this okay that we allow this in our society? Right. Well, what happens when that turns into a walking, talking companion that is fake and allows for, like you said, psychopathy to continue, right? This narcissism that we've seen grow online, right?
Yeah.
People hidden in their basements, being able to write all this, online hatred. And we've seen a skyrocket in that. Like, where is that line in the sand? And I do think that is one of the questions that's being asked here, because it's two men. It's a man that makes these female robots, and in a sense is abusing them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe the question isn't about it, the harm done to the AIs of giving the AIs abuse, but what moral damage is done to ourselves
In the
as
process.
we allow
Yeah.
for that abuse to be done by us.
It's the porn question. What abuse? It's not causing problems to anybody outside of yourself. It's causing problems to you.
Right?
When you,
what kind of abuse
what
is
kind
this?
of
Is this
abuse
perpetuating?
So maybe Nathan's character would not have indulged his psychopathy had he not built the AI. So it's more the moral question.
It goes back to the moral question.
Is he's not a moral man because of the abuse he inflicts on the robots. He's an immoral man because of the abuse in his head, the abuse of his soul by causing abuse to the robots.
I think that they may have been touching on that a little bit, because they show a little bit of his alcohol abuse.
Yes.
They show a little bit of his alcohol abuse.
He does a lot of it. Yeah.
They show a little bit of his abuse to the AIs, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he's killed by it. So it's the question of his demise first, the question of his morality.
If he had been good to the AI, would they have not done that?
So maybe this is more of an existential question of our morality.
Yes. That's what makes a good movie.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a really good movie.
It's a good place to stop too.
Yeah, it's a good place to stop. All right. Well, what's our social stuff?
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Brothers V Random. We're on Instagram and Rumble, all at the Brothers Random. And you can email us, the Brothers Random V at Gmail.
Check us out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Just look for the Sword and the Skull logo. Thanks for that discussion, brother. That review. I guess it's a review. It's more of it always ends up being more of a discussion than anything else. But it was fun. Keep reading, keep listening, keep watching, learn more. We'll see you, brother.
See ya.